For my major project, I've decided to develop a visual novel. I was able to achieve this quite easily by using the software RenPy, which allowed me to bring my story to life. In essence, a visual novel is just a digital book which makes use of dynamic images to better immerse the player. The reason I wanted to create a visual novel for my major project is because I'm in love with the genre. Games such as Danganronpa and Doki Doki Literature Club has been able to trigger emotions in me. For this reason, I wanted to develop my own immersive story. I've kept the tone light-hearted so that my novel can provide relaxation and enjoyment to the player. Although short, I'm very proud of what I have created. The story starts with a narrator who explains a bit about the world and its inhabitants. To make the story even more immersive, I've added sound effects to certain parts, such as the phone here. We're soon introduced to Alistair, who is the main character, and his familiar, Fang. This part establishes what the story is about and what the player can expect. On a technical level, you can see how I was able to put my character into an idle position when they're not speaking, by making it so they go dark and move down a little on the screen. Then when they speak again, they regain the color and move up a little. You can also see that the text gradually appears within the text box. This is a setting you can alter, but the speed you are seeing now is what I put the default at. In conjunction with the characters going idle, you can also see the name of whoever is speaking at the time in the text box. I decided to give each character their own color, in accordance with the color palette I choose for them. In short, I tried to cause as little confusion as possible regarding speaking characters. Next, we're introduced to the supporting character, Pumpero. This laid-back and sometimes hot-headed little ghoul serves as a guide and ally to Alistair. He offers to show Alistair the way through the town and is later on vital in the story. I've given him motivation to help by making him a shopkeeper who often gets stolen from since the familiars went missing. Therefore, by causing him to run after a thief, I was able to make him bump into Alistair fairly naturally. Of course, the chase serves as another way to further the story as it makes Pumpero hungry and lets us smoothly transition to the next scene, the cafe. With this cafe, I'm able to put more world building in my story. It shows that even ghouls have places they go to relax. This is where they find Viola, who is the owner of the cafe. I wanted to make the player have a dramatic sensation when cutting to Viola, the same as Pumpero would feel, so I put a dramatic sound effect and stopped the music briefly to convey that feeling. Having her familiar taken as well, and therefore collapsed, gives Pumpero even more motivation to help Alistair with this. This is where I show his hot-headed side, as he quickly storms out of the cafe without really knowing where to go from there. This is where Alistair's more thoughtful character nicely complements Pumpero's in the moment, showing that they are a good team together. By this point, you probably noticed that Fang speaks an entirely different language. The idea behind this is that only the ghoul who owns the familiar can understand what they are saying. I use the font with symbols to achieve this. It is, however, possible to understand what Fang is saying, but this is more of a secret for those who recognize the font and are willing to put in the work. For this little scene, I wanted to convey a similar sense of drama as the Viola scene, but not quite as shocking. I put another cut and sound effect, but this time I didn't stop the music. Cutting to the next day, you can see that the background is darker, showing that a day has passed. In the previous scene, the background is light as the sun is coming up. In this scene, you can see it's nighttime. As previously explained, ghouls are active during the night. There's a brief cut to Pumpero, who's eagerly waiting for Alistair to continue their investigation. I tried to convey this in his speech pattern. Next up, we cut to the alleyway Alistair previously lost the dark figure in. This is where we get introduced to the antagonist. After splitting up, Alistair is alone with his familiar, which makes him the perfect target for Magnum, who is behind all the kidnappings. The music fades out as a more sinister soundtrack comes in its place. This, together with the dialogue and eerie grin of Magnum, is meant to give the player a sense of unease, bringing in Pumpero's hints at Magnum's ability and limitations thereof. By taking his gaze off of Alistair and instead landing it on Pumpero, Alistair is able to move again and apprehend Magnum, all while Pumpero is immobilized and has no idea what is happening. This tackle is accentuated by the sound effect I play. This is where the story transfers into the final act. Magnum is caught, and with the help of Fang, Alistair is able to track down the familiars. Kind of like a police dog, Fang can sense Magnum's aura, as if it was a scent trail. This is obscurely hinted at the dot and flow around Fang. At this point, there are a bunch of speaking characters. Since I think it would have been too clustered to show them all on screen at once, I've decided to just swap out the two characters with less lines than the other character. In this scene, both Magnum and Pumpero speak less than Alistair, so they swap each other out when speaking. Since Fang is small, I've decided to put him right next to Alistair, also symbolizing their close bond. Since this is the fantasy world, I decided it would be fitting if magic was a part of it. Not the fiery, exploding kind of magic, but the simpler and more tactical kind. Rather than having to blast open a doorway in a hall, I wanted the magic to bend ghouls' perception until they know it's there. For the room with the missing familiars, I wanted to poke fun at the player for not being able to see what's in the room, while Alistair, who is based on a bat, can see it all. At the end of my story, I wanted to give my villain a redemption arc, since I thought he deserved a second chance as his action, damaging as they were, came from a place of loneliness and sadness. And so we come to the conclusion of my visual novel, and therefore of my major project. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope that one day I'll build upon this and maybe release it as a proper visual novel.